Hello everyone, welcome to lecture series on computer organization and architecture. So we'll discuss lecture number 25 of module number 3. Contents that was covered in the previous lecture are interrupt hardware, enabling and disabling of interrupts. So under interrupt hardware, so we have discussed in case of computer system there can be a several IO devices connected to it. So whenever a several IO devices are connected to it, so there will be a chance that any one of the IO device can raise an interrupt. So whenever any IO device requires particular service, it can raise an interrupt. So interrupt hardware is going to deal about when multiple IO devices are connected. Among the multiple IO devices, one of the IO device is selected by means of switch. So this concept was discussed in the previous lecture. Along with that, even we have given an introduction to an enabling and disabling of interrupts. So these things was covered in the previous lecture. Contents covered in this lecture are enabling and disabling of interrupt is continued. Learning outcomes. After this lecture, the students will have a better understanding of enabling as well as disabling of interrupts. So this is the Bloom's taxonomy pyramid. So wherein as we are going to understand when to enable the interrupt and when to disable the interrupt. So that is enabling and disabling of interrupt from an IO device. So hence it is going to fall under the Bloom's taxonomy level number 2. So in the previous lecture also we have started with the enabling and disabling of interrupts. So that is in case of enabling and disabling of interrupts. So whenever an interrupt occurs, it is a normal procedure that the processor is going to suspend the currently running program and it is going to give the service for the requested IO device. So that is currently running program will be stopped from the execution and it will start to execute the another program that is called as an ISR, which is requested by the external device. So here we know that interrupt means it is an asynchronous event. It can happen at any time. It may even alter the sequence of events that has already been performed by the processor. So normally a sequence of events will be generated and those sequence of events can be altered by the processor. So therefore we are supposed to provide the facility so wherein the processor can be enable as well as disable the interrupts as and when it is required. So this can be performed or this can be done by the processor itself or by the user under the program control. So normally, as I told, so processor generally provide the ability to enable and disable interruptions as desired. So one simple way is to provide a machine instruction called as an interrupt enable instruction and interrupt disable instruction for this purpose. So that is the thing is that whenever an asynchronous event called an interrupt occurs, whenever an IO device becomes ready, so automatically it is going to generate an interrupt. So that is going to interrupt it is going to generate an interrupt request signal. So wherein the currently running program by the processor will be stopped and it will start to give the service for the interrupted external IO device. So during the whenever it is going to give the service, so normally it may have a possibility that it can alter the events. So it can alter some a certain information. So in order to avoid that, so we are supposed to go with enabling and disabling of interrupt. So how I can enable the interrupt? So how I can disable the interrupt? So enabling an interrupt and disabling an interrupt, one possibility is that we can execute that particular instructions, that is interrupt enable and interrupt disable instructions. So here the purpose of enabling indicates that so the IO devices, whatever the interrupts that has been generated by an IO device will be recognized by the processor. So this is called as an the processor is going to recognize the interrupts. So this is nothing but enabling of interrupts. So disabling of interrupt means even though the interrupts has been raised, the processor is unable to recognize that. So this is called as an enabling and disabling of interrupts. So now let us consider a specific case of single interrupt request from one device. Assume that we have a case wherein there is only a single interrupt request from one device. So whenever a device activates the interrupt request signal, it keeps the signal activated until acknowledgement. So the meaning of this statement is, so as soon as a particular IO device generates or activates the interrupt request signal, so that signal will be maintained in the active state until the processor recognizes that particular interrupt request signal. So after recognizing, the processor is going to give an acknowledgement to the IO device that particular interrupt request signal is being accepted. So that is, the device is going to keep the device is going to keep the interrupt request signal in the active condition until it receives an acknowledgement from the processor. So this means that the interrupt request signal will be active during the execution of the ISR also. So that is, it may be possible that so interrupt request signal will be keep on active until it will be active during the execution of the ISR. See, giving a response to the interrupt as soon as the processor is going to receive an interrupt request signal from an IO device, the procedure is that the processor is going to stop the execution of the currently running program, and automatically it will start to execute the ISR. That is, it will start to provide the service for the IO device by executing the interrupt service routine. So whenever the processor is under the execution of the interrupt service routine, till that time there will be a possibility of that interrupt request signal will be in the active condition. So whenever an interrupt request signal will be in active condition, so there might be possibility that because as it is in an active mode, so it can lead to a successive interruptions. So therefore, it is very much essential to ensure that this active request signal does not lead to a successive interruptions, causing the system to enter into an infinite loop from which it cannot recover. So that is, it is essential in order to it is essential to ensure, so it is required to ensure that whatever that active request signal interrupt request signal is which is activated one, that should not cause a successive interruption. So if at all it is going to cause a successive interruption, there might be a possibility that the system is going to enter into an infinite loop which cannot cover which wherein it cannot recover from that. So therefore, several mechanisms are available to solve this problem. So that is, the main possibility is that interrupt request signal will be maintained in an active state until execution of an ISR. So our objective is to interrupt request signal must be deactivated, so that is, it should not cause a successive interruptions and make the entire system to go to an infinite loop. So therefore, there are several mechanisms in order to solve this problem. So let us discuss those problems, that is mechanisms which is going to overcome that particular problem. The first possibility is that the processor hardware has to ignore the interrupt request line until the execution of the first instruction of the ISR has been completed. So here the first option, what it says that the processor needs to ignore the interrupt request signal until the execution of the first instruction of the ISR has been completed. So by using interrupt disable instruction at the beginning of the ISR itself, the programmer can ensure that no further interruptions will occur. So here we have an option that we can make use of a two important instruction. So one is called as an interrupt enable instruction and another one is called as an interrupt disable instruction. So here at the beginning of the ISR, so if I am going to put the first instruction itself as the interrupt disable instruction, So automatically whenever the processor stops the currently running program and it starts giving the service for the interrupt requested IO device, so it will start executing the ISR. So whenever it will start it will start the execution of the ISR. So if we are going to keep the first instruction itself as an interrupt disable instruction, if that particular interrupt disable instruction is executed, automatically it will come to the point that so the active interrupt request signal is going to get deactivated. So if that particular signal is deactivated, so further there will be a no successive interruption. It is not going to cause any successive interruption. So that is, by using interrupt disable instruction at the beginning of the ISR, the programmer can ensure that no further interruptions are going to occur. So once that particular first instruction is executed, it is going to disable that particular interrupt request signal. So hence there are no further interruptions from the device. So therefore it can automatically, normally it can give the service for the interrupted device, that is for the that particular IO device. So now once that ISR routine has been executed, so that in order to activate the interrupts, so that is the processor can receive an interrupt request signal. So therefore in order to do that, so we last instruction of the interrupt service routine can be an interrupt enable instruction. So therefore by executing an interrupt enable instruction as the last instruction of the ISR, so that is, it is going to enable the interrupt request signal, so that any particular IO device is going to raise an interrupt, the processor is able to recognize that. So this should happen before the execution of a return from the interrupt. So that is, once the ISR has been executed, the processor has to resume back the previously running program. So it has to resume its execution back to the main program or the previously running program. So that is, execution of the interrupt enable instruction must be done before executing the return instruction from the ISR. So once interrupt enable instruction is executed, then return instruction is executed so that it can return from the ISR and back to the main program. So enabling interrupt, executing an interrupt enable, so here it is nothing but the processor is going to recognize the interrupt request line. The processor must guarantee that the execution of the return from interrupt instruction is completed before further interruption can occur. So now let us move to the second option. So in case of second option is to have the processor automatically disable the interrupts before starting the execution of ISR. So here it is going to, rather than executing the two instruction, one is interrupt disable instruction and interrupt enable instruction, so there is a second possibility. So wherein in case of second possibility, so here interrupts will be disabled automatically before starting with the execution of an ISR. So once the execution of in the previous case, once ISR execution starts, it is mandatory to disable, and at the end it is mandatory to enable. So here it is a different one. So wherein it is going to automatically disable the interrupts before the execution of an ISR begins. So here we are going to concentrate in the second method, or in the second option, we are going to concentrate on program status register. So in case of program status register, we have one bit dedicated for enabling the interrupt as well as disabling the interrupt. So the one bit in the program status register called interrupt enable indicates whether the interrupts are enabled or it is disabled. So that depending upon the value of that particular bit in the program status register, the interrupts may be enabled or interrupts may be disabled. So an interrupt request received while this bit is equal to 1 will be accepted. So any IO devices that are going to raise an interrupt request, so will be received by the processor if at all the one of the bit in the program status register if it is equal to 1. So if that particular bit is equal to 1, then only the interrupt request will be received by the processor. So whatever the interrupt request an interrupt request received while this bit is equal to 1 will be accepted. So now it is a formal way or the procedure. So whenever a interrupt has been interrupt request has been accepted, so it is a procedure to save the content of the program status register onto the stack. So not only we are going to save the content of the program status onto the stack, along with that we will be saving the content of the program counter and other special purpose registers, and required information will be saved onto a particular register or onto the stack. So here whenever a bit is equal to 1, we will be accepting the that is the processor is going to accept the interrupt. So that contents will be saved onto the stack. So the after saving the content of the program status register onto the stack with the interrupt enable bit is equal to 1. So after saving it, the processor is going to clear that interrupt enable bit in the program status register. So clearing the content of program status register is equal to 0. So this makes a disabling of interrupts. So whenever that is the processor is not going to accept any of the the processor is not going to accept the interrupt request signal from any of the IO device. So no doubt one copy we are going to keep it on the stack. So after saving or after copying the after keeping one copy of the program status register onto the stack, so automatically the interrupt enable bit available in the program status register will be made equal to 0. So this makes a disabling of interrupts. So that is the processor is not going to accept the interrupt request signal from any of the IO device. So later, so that is this is done at the beginning itself. So once it is done, so later ISR can be executed, and after execution of an ISR, so it can come back to the main program. So that is when a return from interrupt instruction is executed. So that is once the ISR has been executed, it should come back to the main program. So in order to come back to the main program, a return instruction in the ISR needs to be executed. Executing the return instruction is nothing but the things which are saved will be retrieved back to the particular register. So here the contents of the program status register which was stored into the stack will be saved back to the particular onto the particular program status register. So this makes interrupt enable bit becomes equal to 1. So whenever an interrupt enable bit becomes equal to 1, automatically the interrupts are again enabled. So that is the processor can accept the interrupt request signal from any one of the IO device that is connected to the computer system. So this is the second option. So now we'll move to the third option. So in case of the third option, or the third possibility is that how a processor can accept the at what time it can accept the interrupt request signal. So in the third option, the processor is having a special interrupt request line from which interrupt handling circuit responds only to the leading edge of the signal. So that is in case of interrupt handling circuits, interrupt handling circuit is going to check out. So that is we will be having an interrupt handling circuit. So this interrupt handling circuit, it is going to respond only to the leading edge of the signal. So that is interrupt request signal has to be responded only for the leading edge. So this we call as an leading edge. So leading edge means changing its value from 0 to 1. So this is called as an leading edge. So whenever the processor that is hardware circuit or the interrupt handling circuit recognizes leading edge of the signal, so then it is nothing but it has accepted that particular interrupt request. So that is interrupt request signal is being accepted by the processor. So this the leading edge, so 0 to 1 transition, it is called as an leading edge. So this such a line is considered to be as an edge triggered. So that is the processor will be sensible only if it is having this kind of a signal. So the processor is going to identify only this particular signal, changing the value from the from 0 to 1. So if this signal is recognized by the processor, then it will, that is interrupt handling circuits, they are going to only respond to this leading edge of the signal. So in this case the processor will receive only one request regardless of how long the line is activated. So the length of this line can be anything. This line can be activated for any time duration, so that doesn't matter. So the only thing that is going to matter is this edge triggered. So therefore, hence there is no danger of multiple interruptions and no need to explicitly disable interrupt request from this particular line. So that is this leading edge, it is also called as a rising edge. Edge is also called as an rising edge. So in this case the processor responds only to that edge and not to the level of the interrupt request signal. So thus there will not be a multiple interruptions because of a single request. So now let us summarize the sequence of events involved in handling an interrupt request from a single device. So the first thing is that the device raises an interrupt request as soon as the device becomes ready. The processor interrupts the program currently being executed. So that is, it is going to stop that execution of that particular program. Interrupts are disabled by changing the control bits in the program status register. So in case of, that is in the special case, we have an edge triggered interrupts, that is the third option. Or else we can make use of interrupt enable bit in the program status register, or else by executing the interrupt enable and interrupt disable and interrupt enable instruction. So the first thing is that automatically whenever an IO device becomes ready, they are going to raise the interrupt request. So that interrupt request will be recognized by the processor, which is going to interrupt the currently running program. That is, it is going to stop the execution of the currently running program, and further a disabling of interrupts of action needs to be taken place. So this can be done by the three ways: execution of any interrupt disable and interrupt enable instruction, or changing the interrupt enable bit in the program status register, or by using a special case called as an edge triggered interrupt. So once this thing is done, the device is informed that its request has been recognized. That is, it is the particular IO device. For the particular IO device, the processor is going to give an intimation that its interrupt request has been recognized, and it will be giving a service for that. So that is, and in response it is going to deactivates the interrupt request signal. The action requested by the interrupt is performed by the interrupt service routine. So in order to give the service, an ISR program will be executed. So once the ISR program is executed, so further it is required to enable the interrupt. So interrupts are enabled and execution of the interrupted program is resumed. So the processor which it has stopped for the execution, that program will be resumed back. So conclusion is, we have discussed the three methods or the three options of enabling and disabling the interrupts. Thank you.